All right, welcome H-Radio 223 part-timers to another class for your pre-recorded lessons, right? We've got three weeks left and well, the countdown is real, right? So let's get through some classes. We've got 76, 77, and 78 for the week. And then of course I'll see you next week live in class, right? Okay. So lesson 76. Part four of six in sales. So, next level radio, it's your reference on 9.4 sponsorships and branded content, page 334 to 342. And then, of course, interviews 9.5, 342, 343. Right. What I'll also be doing is playing it's not a short video, it's short enough, long enough. It's about 11 minutes long. They'll just walk you through some branded content ideas, right? As well as we'll just have a quick look at one of the references through the links that are provided here. Let me just show you here. I'd rather have you go through them alone. I'm saying as added value content over here, some brand examples. Okay, and then we'll finish over there and move to the next lesson. Right. Okay, so I think already maybe yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. You might assume to have quite an accurate guess as to what sponsored content is and branded content is. Just as an overview, for example, like I think I've mentioned before, I always say that I think I mentioned before because I must have mentioned it sometime, perhaps maybe not this year, but in many years teaching radio here at Boston. But when we are sponsoring something, we're looking at something that's going to last quite a long while. So it's a long duration or long term of sponsorship. So, for example, a competition that is going to last like 6 weeks long is 6 weeks long. Good Lord, right? My English, right? And it's sponsored by Telcom. Another one is, for example, features that are much longer than 6 weeks. Perhaps maybe a 6 month deal on a feature. It could be sponsored by our insurance. We can also look at let's say, elements like news elements, whether, for example, traffic is easy, financial indicators are easy. And I've mentioned this in class before. It's actually not a good idea to sponsor things like sports and news just because there could be 10 to 1 political angles in there. And well, I don't think I would like to be a company that's associated with any kind of political flare up and down, that might be a part of the news. So there's one over there. And then, of course, like there's top 40 shows, top 40 shows are always sponsored and they go on for about 6 to 12 months in their, in the contract that they sign up with the station for, right? And there's a whole bunch of other things that we can talk about, just around like how do we link that particular brand, so that particular company with what it is that they are sponsoring, because the match really needs to look like a match made in heaven, and complement whatever it is that we are trying to sponsor or again have as branded content, right? All right, so the difference between the two is sponsorships link brands to content that already exists, right? And then branded content creates content from scratch for a specific campaign with a set duration, right? So sponsorships are usually more affordable because the content is already produced, and then branded content on the other hand, requires more people, creative development, and production to be involved in creating and producing the content, as well as obviously delivering it on air. So, in other words, they're going to come to the station and say, "Well, look, we'd love to do something with the station. Can you come up with that particular something?" And that would be something that falls under the realm of branded content. The sponsorship's more likely the stuff that I've said to you. The feature is already there. It just needs a little bit of like a backing, like a little revenue buddy. the top 40 shows are already there. They'll continue to broadcast them, saying to you, yeah, with or without a sponsor, and that's the way in which you can have a look and try to decide what you understand between between the two of them, right? But we will continue with sponsorships and expanding a little bit more. So radio stations are in the business of creating content. Of course, we are. We know that, and content will vary from long form content which is, as I said, the 6, 12 month, whatever it is, to daily and weekly topics and features, right? Topics and features are usually time stamped, so listeners can expect certain content to be delivered to them at the same time of each day or week. So, for example, again, we can already, all of us, kind of think of a certain feature that we hear on the radio every single day, maybe in a breakfast and a drive. Any show can have a feature. It doesn't really matter. And say, oh, that one is like at 7:12 in the morning, or that one is exactly after the news at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. Like a 5 song sweep. Could be a feature, but it's time stamped, as we say, and as you say there, at any time in the day or in the week, right? So this type of content really works well for advertisers because they can easily so align is the word, but they can sync quite nicely into what the content is about as well. They will see, for example, it's a quite a successful feature or whatever it may be, right? Or an element of the show, and say, well, this is it's a good thing for me to get in bed with the station with, right? Okay, anyway, but it really has to have some kind of blatant, in other words, like a very clear alignment with the brand objective to existing well received content that has a guaranteed audience, right? So it also is associated, it also associates their brand, sorry, with that particular content's theme or position. Now, it doesn't have to be exactly. So, for example, we do have, let's say we do have a female-centric or female-based particular feature. It would make obvious sense for someone like First for Women to partner up and obviously sponsor that. That's quite easy and quite, again, obvious, as I say. But we don't have to necessarily say that, we need an insurance feature to be able to like kind of allocate that to or sync that in or partner up with an insurance or an old mutual or whatever it may be, right? Okay. We can look at for example, like insurance is security. Insurance is kind of like investing in yourself. It is also like safety. It is also it's about for sometimes about health, sometimes about assets, about whatever it is, right? And so if we have, let's say, a feature that delves into off the top of my head, the first thing I would think of is, let's say, for example, I mean, mental health, is one of the obvious things and very, very popular amongst themes and talk topics around 2024, 2025, right? So if it is a mental wellness feature, you could quite easily find an insurance like this. Insurance is your safety for you and security for you, and so it can also be linked to the safety and security of a good mindset or healthy mindset or whatever it may be, right? Because those particular topics that we do cover under that mental wellness feature can definitely, I mean, it's so broad. We can look at, let's say, your financial circumstances or your, I don't know, like your psychological well-being, which I'm not going to put a direct link to the fact that if you are driving, like insurance doesn't only cover cars, right? But let's say if you are driving, you're trying to be at work, or you're trying to avoid having to be at a doctor and get medicine and go into hospital and stuff like that. That's easy. That's an easy link that we can find a tie in that is catchy, of course, catchy, and that does make actually sense. But if I take that mental wellness example, I can also stretch that out to obviously someone like this game. Easy. Like this game is so much. It's not about medicine only, but it's about the really healthy, like the healthy products that they sell. The very organic stuff, and things from shampoos to whatever it is, grains, and with what is it, supplements, and we have obviously we have medication and whatever it is, and we can continuously change whatever it is and market whatever is this game is focusing on that moment or in that moment. For example, it's a winter focus, or it's a spring focus, or it's a again, it's like a Black Friday sale. It doesn't matter, right? But that would tie in easily with mental well-being, right? And so we need the link, right? Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm going to say this because it's true, right? Obviously, I'm glad I'm sharing the truth with you, right? Is that you don't. I would almost find no situation. Yeah, and I can say this confidently. There would be almost little to no situation that you cannot link a sponsor with. So, in other words, a little to no feature that does exist, or topic, or interview, or whatever it may be, right? That exists that cannot be linked to somebody out there as like as a service provider. That doesn't that just doesn't make sense. So once again, I'll just say that again. I think it's a little messy. In other words, I've got this topical feature, and I'm trying to think of like a number of possible sponsors, or um, again, clients that I could link in, and I can't really find one. That's almost impossible to come across, right? There will always be a road to somebody, right? You got to think out of the box, as we've said before. Like salespeople are also creatives, in the largest extent, right? So buying into these existing content offerings, right? Um, is known as sponsorship. And sponsorship can be broken down into two categories. One is mandatory indicators, and the other one is features. Okay, just move over here. So, what are mandatory indicators? Stuff that I have mentioned before, but it's good to class them so we know the differences, right? Something that's mandatory in every show. Ideally, you don't really hear it on every station. There are vibrant hybrids, and again, we've spoken about how that is justified according to that particular program strategy or whatever it may be. But ideally, you would imagine news, traffic, sport, weather, and financial indicators to be on every single station, right? So these content pieces play an important role in the station's programming and the content for each show. Brands can tap into any or all, all right, or all of these elements for sponsors, right? I did say to you, just to be wary. The news is not a really great idea, and nor is the sport. But I suppose sometimes it does happen. More ideally, you will see the traffic, the weather, and financial, because there is no kind of like a political agenda, aggression, whatever it is, in association to these particular service elements, right? So the thing is, and it's just as effective because, like, if we're looking at times that are really busy, I'm saying people always want to listen in with the news and the sports, etc. Um, and we also know from research that these particular elements are very popular in terms of very high up on the ranking ladder, right? As to why it is that people listen to the station or to radio in general. These are great opportunities for a sponsor to like pick a particular element, yeah, and then say, I would like to be like that particular element's official sponsor, right? Okay. So these content pieces play. an important role in the station's programming and, of course, its shows. As I just said there, right, brands can tap into any or all of its elements for sponsorship. And again, this entails a brand enclosing the content as provided by the station for its own messaging. So what we do is have a top and a tail. We literally explained this in the class we just had, where once like so with the top and the tail, just before the weather is announced, we'll play like a 15-second commercial, right? The weather is done. All right. After that, we might have a live read, or we might have like a full 30-second advert, and then we'll move on to the next element, right? So it's a great way to just kind of like put that all together and package it quite nicely, right? So it's like taking existing products, right, or an existing product and pasting a different brand over its packaging so that the consumer associates the brand with the product, right? The key for radio sponsorships is to do this in a way that sounds enticing and relevant to the listener. So what do we do here? That's what it kind of looks like, right? A 10-second opening billboard, kind of just exactly as I explained there, and a 10-second closing billboard, right? A CBB, OBB, right? Followed by a 30-second generic spot or a live read. Opening and closing billboards are either read by the presenter before and after the indicator, or are pre-recorded and played before and after the presenter reads that particular piece of content, the weather, the traffic, the indicators, etc. Right? Okay. So the billboards indicate the brand's affirmation to the sponsored material and alert the listener that the content they are about to hear or just have heard is delivered to them courtesy of a specific brand. The news is brought to you by Outsurance. I keep saying Outsurance, so I know there's many more, but anyway, I'm not stuck there, right? And then what they'll do with that is with the tagline that follows that, for example, like the news is brought to you by Outsurance, right? um, whatever it is, keep up to date, or go or call Outsurance now to upgrade your whatever package or your premium, right? With a 25% discount, whatever it may be, I don't know, at a 2020 rate. I'm not sure, something like that. So they'll make sure that, like that kind of like update is the same as like news, news update. They'll find some kind of clever short way to link again, kind of the copy to the brand and obviously the element itself as well. Okay, so oh, excuse me, this creates an association with the brand that can improve recognition, credibility, and trust. Right. With features, on the other hand, they benchmarks for engaging, your listener on a different level, right? Because news doesn't really do that. So here we can start obviously capitalizing on the listener element, right? Or a guest element, or anything that becomes now something interactive and fun, whatever it may be. When I say fun, fun can be anything. It can be interesting, infotainment, it can be funny, it can be whatever, right? So listeners know what sort of content to expect at a particular time and anticipate that content exactly at, like we said, they 7:15 in the morning, right? So features can be accompanied by a jingle, they should be, right? Or key introductory piece that signals the start of this content, right? And from an advertiser's perspective, if features created by the show or station offer much more interaction between the audience and the brand. And so what happens with this and why it's a good deal for an advertiser is that their brand lives a little longer in like directly in the face of a listener, in the ear of the listener, right? Because the feature is 10 to 1 could be anything between 7 minutes long. I'm saying in total, like with the song or whatever it may be, right? Or it could take up, let's say, half an hour of your show, again with music and everything in between, right? So every time the feature comes back, I'm saying for part one, part two, part three, or just part one, or just part two, or just part one, whatever it is. Again, the client is is bannered across that particular feature. And again, the DJ will most definitely have to mention the advertiser's name, the specials, whatever it may be, whatever it is, once again, why, this particular brand is associated, etc., etc., right? Sometimes that also leads to saying giveaways within the feature itself. So, like if you do call in, you do whatever it is, share like your dad's favorite joke or whatever it may be. Like we'll give a lucky listener, whatever it may be, 1,000 rand, courtesy of whatever it is. Oh, I'm trying to look around my house to see what I can actually choose. I don't know, sunlight liquid. Good Lord. All right. Okay, because humor is whatever is a good clean way of life. I don't know. Okay, look, spitballing is never a good thing, right? I'm saying it's just ideas, and we said ain't no judgment before like ideas are ideas, but you get what I'm saying, right? Okay, all right. Anyway, so here there is room for listener suggestions via call, social media, and obviously this is invaluable because the listener will it subliminally link the brand. I'm saying the brand associations from the client, right, to their experience. Once again, if I'm going to give away something to you, we'll say that it is courtesy of MTN, it is courtesy of whatever it is, Zoom, it is courtesy of Boston Media House. Who knows, right? Okay. Anyway, and this is really big, not just for that one particular person that's an active listener within the feature, but also for all those that are passively interacting with the feature itself. Okay. So features have become really key commodities for brands as they are viewed as direct means of communications with the listener. Right. So, sponsorships of features must be treated carefully. Why would you think that? I mean, the thing is, one, um, the first thing is about the time. I would say about the time. I know that you can see some time gaps over there, but we don't we ideally for a feature which is long running, it doesn't we don't drop a feature for a while, especially if it's working, right? Even though that theoretically you should be changing a particular point in your show where you do run a feature, that feature should change to another feature every 3 months, right? That is the theoretical around it. We hardly ever do that, right? If a feature's working, people like it, we can't leave it on for a long time. And so we don't want every 2 seconds, basically, and that's an extreme, that this now is going to change. So this week it's sponsored by this person, that week it's sponsored by that person, 6 weeks is specifically also once they got a rhythm going and they say, okay, well, I mean, it's sponsored by X sponsor for 6 weeks, and then it just kind of stops. One that doesn't also bode well in terms of an impression that you're giving to the listener, because that kind of very likely says that, look, listen, like people obviously someone, I'm saying this particular sponsor, was not really happy with the whatever the investment of sponsoring this feature, and kind of left, and there's no one else that would like to take their place. But we want to do this for a long time, right? So we want to make sure that it's there for a long time. Also, you really have to be careful about how, like the way that the content is actually delivered and constructed within the actual feature itself, because you can't just now do whatever you want as a DJ, which would, again, theoretical on paper, be how you would approach a show. You would want to put in your own content, you want to put in your own opinions. That's the big thing, right? Your own choice of caller, whatever it may be, or your own choice of those particular WhatsApp voice notes, whatever it may be. It really has to tie in to something that is by no means offensive, by no means breaking a rule, by no means anything that the sponsor is going to get really upset about. You can't do, right? Okay. So anyway, there should be an alignment between the content, the feature, and obviously the brand. that is, as I said to you before, right, sponsoring it. So when there is a natural alignment, the commercial message seems less blatant, meaning that listeners may be more open to it, right? And a brand has plan and commit must plan and commit to a long-term sponsorship. So, sponsoring a feature for a day or even a week does nothing, right? Does nothing for both the station as well as the client themselves. Okay, and it takes time and consistency to build an association with the brand. Okay, so again, we have to try to understand that subliminal messaging and marketing and advertising really takes a while, just for it to sink in with a particular consumer is one thing, but also we've said this before on radio as well, just in general in media. Like you'd have to play a song enough times for people to become aware of, oh, I like that I kind of like the tune of this. I'm going to start paying attention to maybe the artist, when the DJ back announces. It could also apply to, let's say, a DJ and the show. I kind of like the show. I wonder who this is. And I'm going to make sure that I start to make a plan in my schedule, a commitment, a date. That's set up every single week or day or whatever it is. But listeners need time, right? So we would definitely, obviously, assure the same thing or follow the same kind of norm, right? When we are doing this in advertising, right, and sales, right? So in doing this, the station is one protected from perceived as fickle, as I said to you. They are just like a bad impression can come in so many ways, right? If that sponsor just suddenly disappears, but it also assists the brand who will be sponsoring the feature in embedding, like again, itself into the audience's mind. So sponsorships can be multi-dimensional because now, just as I mean, like if you're going to sponsor, for example, let's say a feature, right? The feature one we can go in podcast. The feature can be advertised or there can be added value content. I'm saying online or whatever it is. And so we can go and we can integrate this sponsor's name, right? Okay, in many places, not just on air. So again, it says there, like things like podcasts, right, where listeners can go and find out there, and we'll top and tell that with obviously the sponsor's name, etc., right? Depend and maybe an advert, obviously too, right? Depending on the feature, it's also possible to add an off-air event which listeners can attend to experience the content in person. That's always cool, right? The integration of different media elements can be used together to enhance the overall impact of the campaign, as I said here, by looking at like your social media options, and then including that in the package that you are selling to a listener, not listener, a consumer, client, what a client, not consumer, client, right? Okay, so when we look at branded content, then brands are now looking to co-create content so that they can obviously be involved in the narrative of it, the way that it speaks to a listener, the way that it's constructed, the way that it obviously is moving from point A to point B to point Z, right? Okay. So the content is bespoke. In other words, it is uniquely created for a specific client, right? For a specific need, right? So in this way, they can deliver, their marketing messages more effectively and sustain listenerships, right? So that's for the obviously the radio station, right? And we're always in creative control. I get that, but we don't bulldoze the client in by no means. Otherwise, they're going to be like, well, I mean, who's paying the money? Yeah, genuinely, like whose money is this? And you're telling me exactly what you want and what you want to do and what you are going to do. No, man, no. But we acclimatize to what the client wants and what they need and what they again, what you said their problem is, we want to solve that problem right for them. And then we're going to come up with an idea that does that, right? So simply put, branded content allows brands to create stories that are compelling and intertwined with their messages. So brands will often look to house this content on the radio station's platform due to the wide span of their reach and obviously specific audience that they're trying to target. Excuse me. Okay. So, I've got my book here as well. We'll have a look at the example. I wonder if we did look at 9A. No. All right, we did the exercise. All right. It's important to consider the following when generating. No, just give me a second. I need to blow my nose. Just give me a second there. Okay, thanks for your patience. All right. My nose. Oh, anyway. Okay. All right. So let's look at this last slide over here. It's important to consider the following when generating a branded content campaign. One is start with a clear brief, right? So exactly what it is that you want to do, what is needed from you, and what you're going to do about it, right? A clear brief, right? Okay, so think about how to deliver this particular narrative, right? And again, what story are we trying to quote unquote tell? But it's not our story, it's a client's story, right? So keep the content short, interesting, and informative. Develop a storyboard and a campaign timeline, set those targets, and make the content shareable. Right. So sorry. Uh, okay. So let me just quickly, while you do the same thing, I'm just going to open up Next Level Radio. Let's go to page 338. It's quite long. 338. Genuinely, where we left off on Saturday. 338, and then you'll be able to see, like, we're going to have a look at the obviously the slots that are available across, but let's read together. Okay, so everyone ready? All right, let's look. Okay, so it's the costing of a sponsorship and creating branded content. So, a sponsorship costing will include the following components. One, the parties involved. So, the client, the media practitioner managing the sponsorship for the client, the sales representative managing the sponsorship for the radio station, the show and presenters executing the campaign on air. The campaign now has a timeline and on air dates. So the relevant radio station where the sponsorship is being now booked. So on the next page, the following table shows how costing could be calculated for multiple 30-second mentions during different time channels and on different days. This then adds up to a cost as per the station's rate card, the discount the station is giving the client, and the required payment of the discount. Now, what you see here looks exactly like. So remember on Saturday, like I showed you that layout from our station, right? And it was exactly like this, and then adds to a whole bunch of money at the end, right? This is exactly that. So again, just to have a quick reprise as to what's going on there, the number of slots per day, and then obviously it does all 24 hours across, right? And it will say how many times each one of these 30-second commercials are going to be played out on the rate card. It costs this much and that much across the different time slots because it's based on obviously how many people are listening at that time. It's based on a P1 listener as well. It's based on so many things that we have chatted about before. Then there's discounts there, and the spot cost is based on that, as well as the total cost that is then times altogether, right? And then we have another example there at the bottom there, and then it says, okay, Monday to Sunday total there. The rate card is set to then 19,906. There's a discount on that, a spot cost on that, right, and investment. Okay. So, table 9.1 is an example of costing for 30-second mentions during different channels and on different days. Okay. Continue. Let's just have a look at, because we're just going to continue with the example and move through on page 340. The station, for example, is ESFM. The client is called Telco. Who received the brief? KG Ledija, and the creative strategist was Tando Klubi, right? So who is the media agency? Well, they are Glen Creative, that handles creative or creatives, the creative part, should I say, right? And Bila Planning handles the media planning and buying. What is the budget? Well, it's 1 million rand. What is the campaign timing? The week commencing 11th of November 2019. The deadline for the concept to be presented to the client, it needs to be presented and responded to on Friday, the 15th of October. So who are they targeting? All adults between the ages of 18 and 35 years old. Focus is on young adults. We know about the client. Well, Telco does not do a lot of creative campaigns, and this is an opportunity for us to get them to run a fun branded content campaign instead of a generic spot schedule. Right, okay. So there's a space for insights there. So what is the client's unique selling point? Remember the USP, and what sets them apart from the competition, and who are their key competitors? All the other cell phone network providers is the answer. Well, that can be found there, right? Okay. Not be found there, but can be found to suit the question over there. Not really much else, and we spoke about unique selling point, and the USP, because it really is important that we find why this particular brand stands out from the rest. But it's coming up. How do they behave in the brand marketing, and what is the brand tone of voice? It's upbeat, it's positive, it's youthful, and it's fun. So let's have a look further as to what's the campaign objectives. Talco is celebrating its 40th birthday and wishes to mark this milestone by running a week-long promotion on air across the morning and afternoon drive shows. The campaign objective to drive app downloads and use the Talco app to purchase data to generate excitement around Telco as a celebrated South African brand. Now, about the promotion, it's running an integrated marketing campaign using other types of media, not just radio. And their narrative is around the 40th or the 40th celebration, giving back to their customers. So, entry requirements could include the following: callers can call in during the breakfast and afternoon drive and share their birthday wishes for Telco. The caller with the best celebration message will be awarded a cash prize. And then, in keeping with the recent trend for smashing cakes, this is another option though, okay, particularly at children's birthday parties, callers narrate how they would best crush a cake. And that could be using a hammer, smashing it, driving over it, the best the best cake crusher. What a waste of money. Cakes are super expensive these days. Anyway. Prizes. There is 100 million rand in prizes to be won across the competition through the mobile app. On radio, there are daily prizes to be won, but on Friday, the winner of the week will be given an opportunity to come to the studio to enact their story and crush a brand 40th birthday cake in studio. The competition is open to everyone, but Telco's subscribers get better prizes and more value. Right, let's continue to finish this up. All right, so what is the key challenge over here? The messages are so the points are: what is the key message of this campaign? What must land with the audience, and what action are we trying to inspire? Well, this campaign aims to drive mental awareness and brand fame, for Telco as a newsworthy moment in history. as the first telecommunications and cell phone provider in South Africa, celebrating its 40th birthday. Telco wants to associate its brand with a celebratory feeling. What does success look like to the client? So, an amazing campaign that increases telco, oh my eyes, telco's app downloads and app usage throughout the campaign, as well as increases data purchasing. Last thing over here, how will the campaign be measured? Well, the number of app downloads is one, the number of app interactions using a special promotional code that applies to ESFM. Only ESFM only. The campaign will be running on other channels and media, okay, and therefore will have our own code that listeners can use to unlock discounted promotions, prizes, so we can track when and who our leads are, and the rand value of data purchased in the campaign period. Okay, really nice example, and definitely can help you in your sorry, not your F. We're now in that part of the year, we're in S1, so that'll help you over there most definitely, right? And so please keep that in mind. Please have a look here. I'm going to show you now in just a moment. Just an example from here from the case studies. But I just want to finish the lesson first. We'll go to the video. Interviews can also be paid for, right? And a lot of community stations actually push this because they want to bring in sales in any kind of way that they possibly can. So whoever you are and whatever you want to have an interview on the station about, right? This is a difficult one, genuinely. I'm being serious because the thing is that we need content. We interview people all the time, right? So, so being able to somehow not convince, but to justify to a particular person who wants to be interviewed at the station, coming to you maybe is a better option or better avenue or explanation as to why you could charge them to do half an hour or an hour on the station, whatever it may be, right? When we say to them it's going to cost us much money, you're more than welcome to, and we'll find a great way to obviously include your product, your brand, how much, like, what are you selling at this car? Like, it becomes very kind of blatant advertising, integrated into content, right, creation, right? So interviews allow listeners obviously to participate within the conversation, allow them to connect with the product, etc., right? And again, we have to think about whether or not this actually matters to our listener as well. Okay. So not everyone should be and can be allowed to have an interview, even if it's paid for on the station, right? So, pre-approved by the program manager, interview pricing is seldom found on the rate card, and then it's obviously it's an ad hoc pricing method. We'll say, okay, cool, great, like for this hour on this day, like in this show, whatever it may be, right? For this long, we'll charge you X amount of money. And as I said to you before, we kind of don't really charge the same price, even package wise, whatever it's because it's negotiable, right? From client to client, it just is. We want to make the sale and get some money in, right? Okay, so an interview can be used to launch campaign. And as I said, the topics are navigated by both sales and programming, which becomes a little tricky, right? Alternatively, it can be used as a campaign conclusion, which is always great. That makes sense. That makes a little bit more sense. So instead of reading it from here, please just go to page 343. Okay, with just a slightly clearer, I'm saying in your book, right? Page 343. I will anyway. Just gonna just zoom in a bit here. Uh, Sorry, that's my phone. Okay, so anyway, let's have a look at some interview guidelines here. Be aware of your audience, make the information relevant, use suitable language, give examples to explain, Be succinct. In other words, like only take the amount of time that you need to say what you need to say. Get the listeners to feel a connection. So focus on how listeners should feel about the brand. Consider how to make them feel that way. And then obviously do not just rely on the brand's existing reputation, right? Two more. Be open to difficult questions. The brand must appear open and honest. Consider inviting live callers to ask questions and use an approach that resonates with the listener. So consider the audience, the tone, and the existing listener base. All right. I'm just going to stop that share over there. Just want to quickly show you an example. Yeah. Of the ads case studies. So what happens is you can go to the site, the case study one. What happens, there's a whole bunch, right, that you can click on just to show you like how branded, how each of the case studies work. Can you see there? So for example, like with AA, how Radio helped AA launch the new campaign On the Road to Success. So non-radio listeners increase, well, the reach was about 29%, right? A boost, okay, the radio listeners 41%. So with the background, the AA were looking to show their target audience that they will do whatever it takes to keep the show on the road. So they knew the role for breakdown cover needed to change from focusing on urgency to utility, showing that AA understands their lives as drivers. Why radio was used was to make their new brand campaign a success. The AA set out to maximize reach of their target audience, ensure high levels of and cut through, sorry, not cutthroat. Yeah, that's where my mind is at, and stimulate an emotional response as part of a multimedia campaign featuring TV, outdoor, radio that helped extend the overall reach of the campaign. More crucially, radio allowed the AA to take the message out of the living room into the car and emotionally engage potential customers across the day. Right, okay. Excuse me. How was radio used then? Creatively, the brand proposition never missed a beat. Was conveyed, never miss a beat was conveyed by a baby girl singing along to Tina Turner's Proud Mary. The radio ad both exploited and propagated this distinctive audio brand asset, ensuring that AA benefited from the proven brand multiplier effects of radio. For a media perspective, the radio campaign ran nationally, with radio campaigns specifically upweighted for drive time to reach target audiences whilst they were in their car. I think that's quite self explanatory. What happened as a result? The launch campaign was a success, with radio specifically helping to drive higher levels of standout and ad recognition amongst the listeners. Most importantly, the campaign was effective at broadening the appeal of AA breakdown assistance, with radio listening 44% more likely to consider the AA. The campaign proved very successful amongst non AA members who are considering buying breakdown service. 41.2% of these listeners would consider the AA when purchasing breakdown assistance, compared to 28.9% of non radio listeners. Thus, the radio campaign successfully broadened the AA's appeal. Commentary by allowing us to extend the campaign to reach audiences in car, radio played a vital role in making the AA's new branding campaign sing, demonstrated through an impressive set of results. That's obviously from that side, right? I just want to show you what that looks like. So let's close this here. There you go. See, there's a whole bunch of it's super cool, right? Super cool. You can go and have a look at any amount of these, right, for some inspiration. Okay. This is the video that I want to show. I'm going to keep quiet and you watch.
Hi, afternoon. I'm Jimmy and I'm the Branded Content Director for Bauer Media's Hits Radio Brands Network. I've been invited here today to give some insight into branded content, so I guess the best place to start is answering the very question, what is branded content? Well, I'm going to suggest you already know because all of us have either heard it, seen it, read it, or been influenced at some point by it. It might have been when you woke up this morning and checked out your social media accounts, your LinkedIn account. It could have been via a magazine article you read, the back pages of a newspaper, online, or via TV. Branded content is paid for marketing that's paid for by an advertiser and delivered by a channel, and in this case, radio. But what is branded content when it comes to commercial radio? Well, to define it further, branded content creates engaging commercial solutions for clients that bring campaigns to life and helps communicate a client's set of key messages. But what is it exactly and how can it work for you? Advertising on commercial radio has evolved over the years and branded content has been at the very core of delivering results, compelling results that aren't just driven by the traditional spot ads that you hear during a commercial ad break. Branded content allows clients to take advantage of extensive range of creative opportunities and partnerships that stations have available within their programming output. It offers clients a closer relationship with a station's listenership and the digital and social media audiences that they have. And because radio has always had huge levels of trust and loyalty, branded content campaigns allow advertisers the benefit from this and the unique relationship that radio stations, all shapes and sizes up and down the UK, enjoy with millions of listeners every day. Research, as we heard, has been commissioned by the Radio Centre, shows that since restrictions began in 2020, more than a third of commercial radio listeners have consistently tuned in for longer. The research goes on to show that commercial radio audiences are looking forward to returning to their local high street or have been trying harder to support local businesses since the pandemic began. That they are looking forward to days out, spending more time visiting friends and family who do not live in their immediate area, a desire to hit the roads to explore more out of the local areas, and they have a hunger to get back to visiting restaurants, cafes and overnight stays away. 9 out of 10 of the working from home commercial radio audience specify that they are listening more now because they can choose the radio that they tune into while they work. The findings go on to suggest that commercial radio is giving advertisers greater access to this highly valued audience during working days when they may not have had the opportunity to pre-pandemic. So those working from home are also more receptive to advertising, and 52% of them admitted that they search for something when they've heard it advertised on the radio. So how can branded content, based on all of that, benefit you as an advertiser? Radio can deliver unique and powerful partnerships in key times of the day in ways that no other broadcast medium can. I've been in radio since 1994 when I started out Radio Lollipop at Southampton General Hospital, and since then I've gone to work in national press, out-of-home marketing, experiential events, TV production and digital. But radio is where I truly believe the difference can be made for clients who want to grow and get ahead of the competition, and I believe this for many reasons. First, it's how radio is consumed by your consumers. As I've just explained, commercial radio listening has increased and will continue to do so as our audiences head back out and about in their cars with their favourite radio stations tuned on. An in-car medium that is as entertaining as it is informative, as listeners sing along to their favourite music while keeping a keen ear on the all-important traffic and travel and weather updates. Radio is woven into the very fabric of our daily lives. Audiences wake up to it, school runs are fueled by it, the working day is assisted by it, you cook dinners, you walk the dog, you take a shower, you chill out, you fall asleep. All of these personal and intimate moments that radio plays a part of, and via branded content, you can too. Secondly is how the industry has evolved. Radio is audio, but we haven't shied away from visualising the content through embracing video. We've included it and we've immersed ourselves in it and use it as a powerful product to help share a client's story through. We invest in social media campaigns to target specific demographics, And it's these multi-channel opportunities and our clear focus on relevant solutions that help deliver successful campaigns. The third reason is the very people in this industry. Never have I worked with a more creative, more driven, more passionate bunch of people who genuinely care about driving results, supporting clients' campaigns and helping them get back on their feet, back to getting customers back to the counters, and in this case, driving those results through branded content. There are many variable touch points when it comes to branded content that we can use to connect your brands with our listeners day in, day out. If we look at the core on-air opportunities, we have the well-known sponsorship platforms whereby you can sponsor a show or a feature within a show, day parts or even weekends. You have promotions to run competitions via. There's insights or advertorial campaigns to land the more emotive or impactful messages. We can produce podcasts to tell a story, to teach a new hobby, to educate and entertain, to make listeners laugh, of which your brand can be a part of it. Off-air, we have digital products too. We get brands to hand via bespoke social media, online and app-based campaigns. We can produce video content from explainer videos, animations to virtual tours that sit online with or without presenter inclusion. And we can storyboard, shoot and deliver broadcast TV commercials with social media edits that can be posted and boosted across our own and your social media channels with the sole intention of growing your reach. We can connect audiences with your brands while at home, while in their spare rooms that are now their offices, while in their cars heading out on days away, trips to restaurants or as they head to the gym. We can connect to them while they're in the gym, while they're drifting off to sleep, and then do it all again the next day. And the great news is that we can do all of this and much more on a localised and regionalised level via branded content. But let's look at branded content on a more granular level and how specific products could work, starting with sponsorships. Sponsorship is brilliant at delivering high-frequency series of key messages and driving repetition of those messages. Repetition is at the very core of the science behind commercial radio, which is around building brand reputation through repetition. Sponsorship offers clients the opportunity to align themselves with a product or a property that shares similar values and which builds trust with the audience and ultimately delivers higher brand recall for your brand. From key show sponsorships like breakfast through to drive or popular functionals such as weather and traffic and travel, we work to find the right synergy that fits the right budget in order to drive results. We then have promotions, and in the world of branded content, we are content creators. We have on-air teams that are trusted by our audiences, which makes them hugely influential when it comes to aligning brands and helping sell a brand. When we create branded content solutions, we integrate clients within our programming, and at that moment, when presenters or stations talk about a brand, it's a unique connection in a personal space between a presenter, a station, and the listener, a trusted voice giving a recommendation. Promotions allow us to weave clients seamlessly into a space that is reserved for something that is at the very core of radio station outputs, which is the content. Our audiences are engaged. They have a relationship with our presenters and our brands, and when they like what they hear, they do as they do when a friend offers advice. They instinctively trust that message and act on it. Off-air branded content campaigns can leverage the awesome and engaging power of keeping your brand always on 24/7, 365 days a year via digital and social media campaigns. These multi-channel bespoke campaigns take clients' brands and key messages out to huge engaged audiences through the power of stations' own websites, databases, through their linked social media channels. Targeted campaigns can reach phenomenal audiences. Quite simply, branded content campaigns work. They really, really work. The success, as we've already heard, lies in the initial brief that we can take from our account managers. The more information that we can gather from you, the client, the more information that we can build into the brief, the better the content solution that we'll be able to hand back to you. Branded content solutions strengthens relationships, not just between a station and the client, but also between the client and the audience. And it's this that helps deliver results, tangible results, that delivers valued return on your investment time and time again. Here is a montage of the typical kind of branded content that we have produced locally and regionally up and down the UK here at Bauer Media.
Bauer Media, branded content.
Hits Radio Breakfast with Fleur East.
With Hungry Horse. All next week on Radio City Breakfast, we're celebrating Vodafone Gigafast Broadband coming to your area.
The free radio throwback.
With Butlin's live music weekends, an incredible atmosphere awaits for the ultimate reunion with your mates.
Live shows are back on the Isle of Wight this July at the Woodland Sessions. Laugh away lockdown with Woodland Sessions Comedy, hosted by Tom Allen.
Good, that's very nice to be here.
It's time to have a spring clear out and turn those unwanted items into money at Cash Generator Red Roof. Greatest Hits Radio. Loves a week in the sun and low deposit holidays from jet2.co.uk. Signal One loves Alton Towers and you'll love working there. They're recruiting now.
As people arrive at the hotel, my job is to welcome guests in.
Greatest Hits Radio Breakfast.
With Speedwell Group, always over 100 quality used cars to choose from.
All right, okay, close up there. Let's stop the share over there. And that is the end of this lesson.